My name's Rich Jones. I'm the president and CEO of the Washington Society of CPAs. I've been the CEO there for just a little under 9 years. And before that, I was a tax partner with Ernst & Young, so now I'm a recovering tax guy. I'm going to talk today, let me get this, about the new committee that NASBA has formed and about our first two meetings that we've had. First being a conference call, the second being a live meeting at the NASBA offices in Nashville. And I ought to start by saying thank you to Galen Hansen and to Ken Bishop and to the others who made the decision to really focus on the help that state societies could be to state boards. You know, we've all had long relationships together. And I believe this committee is the first time that NASBA's had a committee made up of outsiders, if you will, non-NASBA members chaired by a person who's not a NASBA member. And so we view this as quite historic. And as I tell you about our meeting, I think you'll see that it was a very, very positive and productive meeting, and we're quite optimistic about the future outcome of the work of this committee. I'd also just like to take a moment to thank and congratulate Rick Sweeney on his presentation yesterday of the Lorraine Sachs Award. Rick and I have worked together since almost day one of both of us taking on our jobs. And as I look back on and to say how can states really improve the relationship between state societies and state boards, I think there was an awful lot that Rick and I were fortunate enough to do that was very effective in that regard. The charge of this committee, first let me say the rationale for it was that NASBA believes fostering greater dialogue and collaboration between boards of accountancy and state societies is essential to ensuring effective regulation and advancing the common interest of the profession. So the rationale was really not between NASBA and these entities, but the rationale was between state societies and state boards. But the charge let me see here. Here we go. Here's the charge then of our committee is to provide state societies a platform to inform boards of accountancy and NASBA. So this is where NASBA comes into the charge. And this was a charge that was given to us. This was not a charge that was created by the committee. This was the charge that was given to us, and we looked at it and said, yeah, we think that's very good. So to provide state societies a platform to inform boards of accountancy and NASBA about issues of importance to the regulation to the profession. So listed here, and it's probably a little busy on your slide, you have them in the materials, is what we said was going to be our 2012-2013 focus. I think probably, given that our first in-person meeting was less than 2 months ago, this will probably be our 2013-2014 focus. And the first one's kind of an interesting one, and that's to identify possible statutory changes within each jurisdiction that could enhance the effectiveness of boards of accountancy. As we sat around and we talked about the different state boards of accountancy represented in the room, it was striking how different some things happen in different states. The whole process of getting people appointed to the board, the election or hiring of executive directors, the rules process, very different in different states. And to the extent then that we're able to identify any cases where statutory changes would make that more effective, we'll look to do that. Develop best practices to enhance quality of input into promulgation of regulations. We also talked about how rules get set in the states, and sometimes how rules get set not in the states but at a national level that affect accountants. And we do have CEOs of state societies that have 2 standing seats on the peer review board. I'm currently one of those. and on the UAA committee. And so we do have input into some of these standard setting bodies as well. You can see that then the other goals that we have here. I won't read those to you, but I would like to tell you a little bit about the group of people that are on this committee. There we go. Hope I didn't make it go backwards. The selection of people to serve on this committee was made by a combination of Ken Bishop and Galen Hansen. They selected as a starting point someone from each of your divisions. I forget what you call. What do you call your regions? Thank you. From each of your regions, so you can see the people that are on there. One of the positions that'll be an ex officio position is that of the president of the CPA SEA organization, and so Erin Hardwick was just finished her year as president of CPA SEA, and Loretta Doon from California, who is with us today, is the new president, so Loretta will replace Erin on that. On your table, we have distributed a little brochure that we put together to talk about CPA SEA, because in some ways, we're like NASBA. It's an association, but we have fewer members. We have 54 members. It's an association of the CEOs of each of the state societies. We meet at least 3 times a year in person. You can see, if you look on the inside, that our strategic and operational values are somewhat similar to yours in terms of leadership, integrity, collaboration, and exploration. So we work very hard to try to help each other understand what's going on with the states. And as you look at the people that Ken and Galen chose to serve on this committee, many of them are past presidents of the society. You can also see under the liaise bullet that we have that relationships with other professional associations are very important to CPA SEA, and those included the AICPA. Many people think that we're a chapter of the AICPA or that we have some formal relationship. We don't. We're all independent. We're independent of each other, but we have a very important and valuable long-standing relationship with the AICPA. And we've had a focus on NASBA as an organization to have relations with for many years. We've had committees. We've met with the senior leadership of NASBA, but we have now discontinued that committee of CPA SEA because of the work of NASBA in creating this committee. And the one bullet we didn't actually put on there, I was thinking that we should, is also our relationships with state boards of accountancy, because those are also very, very important to us. One thing I will tell you about the committee for this next year, these are very experienced people in association management and in the society. Collectively, they represent over 146,000 members, and the average length of service with the state society, the median is 25 years, ranging from 8 to 38 years. So we've got some pretty experienced people to help us with this. We met with our first meeting, and we spent the entire day with the senior leadership team of NASBA. Almost every single person was here all day. It was a very open and candid meeting. Kind of a game rule was, let's get it on the table. Let's figure out what the issues are, what we need to work on together. And Galen and Ken were there the entire day with us to talk through these issues. There was no sense of political correctness per se. Ed Barnicott talked to us a lot about the strategy. And John Johnston, who is the staff person for this committee, he actually wrote up minutes after the meeting and sent them out, and they were typed up minutes 14 pages long, which so he's obviously a very, very capable guy in terms of kind of paying attention and recording, and he's going to be very key to us. Some of the things that we talked about. Initially, we started talking about the issues facing the profession, whether we started with NASBA's mission, vision, values, your organizational structure. Many of our people, even though they've been in the profession for a long time, did not understand all of the business units that you have, all of the activities of NASBA, how you are organized. And so this was, I think, very helpful. It says here at our initial meeting, and I realized when we just had this breakfast meeting that Ken Johnson facilitated of different groups from the profession, state societies, AICPA, NSA, that it wasn't actually it says our initial meeting, but it wasn't our initial meeting because we recognized early on that we needed to have a telephone conference before we got together, because we were quite concerned about the environment, and as Ken Bishop would say, some slanted comments that were being made in the profession around FRS for SMEs, and we said we think it would be helpful for us to talk about this, and so NASBA's leadership was very open to say, let's have a conference call, let's hear your concerns, and let's hear what was going on. And I think from our conversations that with both that AICPA and NASBA certainly raised for them a concern coming from the states that this is something that we should work on sooner rather than later, and in fact the issues got some of the air got let out of the balloon, I guess I would say. We also had a tour of the NASBA offices, and as Ken has also said, that the pictures of all the past presidents in the hall, it was obvious to us as well, no one was hiding it, that it didn't really represent the composition of CPAs in the profession, and so I really commend NASBA on their diversity initiatives. So we talked about the issues you can see here to bring everybody up to speed, although to be honest with you, most of these CEOs are dealing with these issues, but it was a good opportunity to talk about would there be any area of disagreement as we went through these issues. We also, before the conference, we had some society CEOs that had some questions that they wanted to ask, and so I sent them to Ken. Ken said, put them on the table. We will talk about these issues, and we talked about what is the nature of the difficult state-society-state board relationships. What do we hear are the challenges between these organizations, and an awful lot of it really did come down to miscommunication, lack of communication, certainly sometimes an issue of trust. We talked about ways to increase state society attendance at NASBA conferences. You will find that we don't have as much attendance here by CEOs and senior management of state societies. We will be working to make that different. And then we raised the question of would NASBA consider, opening up your regional sessions to the full membership. We used to attend those, found them useful to know what you really think about some of the issues. Ken kind of suggested that he'd be happy to bring it to the organization to think about, but when you've talked about that before, you felt like there were some things you'd like to talk about just amongst yourselves, and was pointed out for us that both AICPA and CPA SEA also have executive sessions or sessions that are not open to the public, but again, it wasn't an issue that was ducked. No one refused to talk about it. We would ask you again to think about opening those up, but if you don't, I think we understand the reasons for that. Don't necessarily always agree with them, but we understand it. Here's some of my observations. I'll try to get through these fairly quickly. The first one is, to me, the most important, and that's if trust does not exist between a state society and a state board, nothing good can happen. Both parties are going to sub-optimize what they're trying to accomplish. And so as I would personally look at this, I think this is an area for us to really focus on, is to develop trust. Trust takes time, it takes change and a lot of discussion. We know that many state boards are less effective today than they may have been before from loss of an independent status, maybe getting lost in a large umbrella status, maybe having your funds swept or not having the resources that you need to properly perform your function as regulators in protecting the public. We think there are things that state societies, we know there are things state societies can do because many of our state societies have helped state boards with these kinds of issues. We had an agreement that, somewhat of an agreement, I think, that there's no reason good people, smart people with good intent can't have different opinions on things without being disagreeable. So a feeling, and I think I would say I have seen changes in that over the years between the different members of the accounting professional association community. But our belief is that we can disagree without being disagreeable, and that disagreement, being disagreeable, really interferes with everything else that we might try to do together. As I said, more than 50% of state society CEOs do not regularly attend NASBA meetings. When I talked with our members 2 weeks ago in LA at the Regional Council, I said I had this point in my slide, but I think being a CPA, I should be honest and say that number probably should be more than 75% of our CEOs don't actively attend your meetings, your regional or national meetings, and that'll be one of our efforts, is to try to, it's really hard to establish relationship if you're not in the same room together. And we think that there's a real missed opportunity by not getting together and doing the things like the luau last night and talking in these sessions. How else are you going to establish these relationships? Cost was an issue with a lot of CEOs and attending, particularly the, well, I shouldn't say particularly the national meeting. Your annual meeting has a timing problem for us because we have AICPA Council 2 weeks, somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks before this meeting. That can make it a long time to be out of the office when we're finally just getting our members back from tax season on October 15th. It's sometimes a challenge, but if it's important, people will find a way to get here. And the reduction in the fees and giving non-members the same rate as members was very, very well received as an outreach to the profession that you really wanted people to be able to come to this. And Ken gave us a history lesson that actually, according to Ken, and he's usually right, that all state boards were originally started by state societies who saw the need to have a regulated profession as being in the best interest of the profession or making it a profession. So we kind of started with state societies and you know, really supporting state boards to get going, and it'd be nice if we got back to them. A couple more observations that I would have is that, and I think Carlos mentioned this, state societies can be very helpful in the process of appointing state members to the state boards. We have lots of opportunities to do that. It doesn't look self-serving the way it would if perhaps, you know, someone on the state board is trying to get their cousin or something on the state board. And, you know, you can't really have an effective state board if you haven't got effective board members, and if you haven't got an effective staff. So I think we heard this over and over again, is to have a strong state board of accountancy, it has to have a strong board, and I think particularly a strong ED as well. And so I think we can help make each other stronger with that. We've also found sometimes that someone having a leadership position in NASBA, when it comes time to talk to the governor about reappointment, can be helpful to say, do you realize this person has this national role in the largest regulatory group in the profession, and that's why we need them back on there. Sometimes we can say that a little less self-serving than you. I think we would also say that we have to work together on legislation. That we've had a number of senators and state reps tell us, we don't want a food fight, don't bring your group, don't bring the society and the state board in opposition to each other in front of us, get it worked out, or don't come here. And so my last bullet there, which one of my colleagues said, do you realize you already have that in there once? I said, yeah, but I wanted to really emphasize this, that if trust does not exist between state side and state board, nothing good can happen. So I think that'll be our starting point a little bit, try to figure out what can we do to try to increase the trust. We know it's a two-way street, it's not a one-way street. Our next steps are still being worked out. We'll have, I think John Johnson and I will have a conference call next week or the following week to schedule our next committee meeting. We have a budget. NASBA gave us a budget, and so we'll start to figure out how to live within that budget. It's another indication NASBA really cares about this relationship when they put their money where their mouth is and say, we will pay for the cost of 8 of you to come together and do this work. We had, as I said, we talked about the importance of the NASBA State Society relationship at our meeting 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles, and we have a segment on our midwinter meeting, which is when we all get together for 3 or 4 days, and we'll be talking, Ralph Thomas and I will be talking with all of our colleagues about, again, the importance of this, getting their feedback, their ideas, so that we can be more effective. So, Carlos, that's my report on the work of this new committee, and thank you again for creating this committee.
Move this.